All right, religion then is a tool of the capitalists to maintain their control and to stop what the Marxists see as the proper evolution or revolution of society toward socialism. Now, the broader claim that the Marxists made, we discussed earlier, is that economics is the fundamental causal force for all of society, and so religion is an offshoot or secondary consequence, right, or a way in many cases of making abstract and instantiating in ideological trappings what's really going on in the underlying economic forces, and of course providing a rationale and a second level justification for it. Now, we looked at that in the context of earlier societies, tribal economies, agriculturally based economies, and so forth. How does that thesis play out if we look at more complicated societies such as feudalism and then modern capitalism and so on? All right, well, let's go back and look at feudalism, right, as a political economic, right, structure here. And we say, all right, what is the structure of feudalism as a political economy? Well, at the top of the heap, we have the king. Okay. And then below the king, under feudalism, we have another class that has a few more people in it. That's the aristocracy. So we have a whole bunch of aristocrats in here. The king plus all of the aristocrats, of course, there's some variation depending on the feudal society, but always, right, less than 10% of the population, right, overall. Now, you might then have a larger number, right, of people who are skilled craftsmen in the various guilds, and they will have a less honored position than the aristocrats, but nonetheless they have some esteem in the society. But then what you do have in the society is a huge, right, rest of the population, and that is the peasantry. Okay. All right, so this is the political structure, right, from bottom to top, and it's also the economic structure, right? The king is the wealthiest, the one who controls all of the material forces of production, and so on all the way down. So we have a strictly hierarchical structure. Now, this is feudalism, and if we take Western feudalism and we ask when feudalism was dominating European history, that 1,000-year period roughly from the fall of the Roman Empire to the Renaissance, what was the dominant religious structure of the time? And they say, well, it was Christianity, but it was a specific form of Christianity that we now know as Catholicism. Of course, at that point, there was no split between Protestants and Catholics, so it was just Christianity from their perspective. But what is the intellectual, political, economic, right, and so forth, social structure that's built into the Catholic Church? And they would say, well, at the top, we have a pope. And then below the Pope, right, he is the one who speaks directly with God. We have a few cardinals. And then there are, of course, some other degrees. There are archbishops and bishops, right, and so forth. But we'll just say down here, essentially we have all of the lay priests, keeping the social structure relatively simple here. But then below the priests, what we have is, again, the broad mass of the population, right, and that is the laity. Okay. So what we have then here is economics, right, and religion, right, or political economy and religious philosophy on this side here. And the Marxists will say it's no accident that the structure is exactly the same. We have the same hierarchical structure here. In this case, all political and economic power starts at the top and flows down. Here, all intellectual and moral power starts at the top and flows down. And what is the purpose, right, of all of this structure here? Well, it is to partly make real, right, in the minds of the laity every time they show up in church on Sunday morning or for any particular service. It always has a religious investiture to it. So it's to make real to them this more abstract and in some cases distant structure, right, that is over here. It's get them used to the idea of hierarchy and that they're at the bottom of the heap and they're expected to do what their betters tell them, right, higher up. But also it provides a rationalization and a justification, right, for the political and economic structure. Because if you think, for example, of the ritual that we go through every time a new king, right, comes to power, right, what happens is the Pope shows up, or a cardinal shows up, or whoever the highest religious official in the area who can be brought in for the ceremony. That person then takes a crown and places it on the head of the king. So if the Pope is supposed to be speaking for God right here on earth, and the Pope is assigning this crown to the king, then the message that religion is providing to the political and economic structure is one of religious justification, right? It's saying to the peasants and the laity, right, who are in attendance, you should obey the king just as you should obey God. Now, of course, the king is using political muscle and economic muscle to enforce his will, and the purpose of the religion in this case is to add religion's theological and moral muscle, right, to the mix.